What's up, you guys? You might be wondering why I changed my name to Mr. Spade Clown and Tech. Well, this is because I don't know if guys knew this, but one of my main passions is I love phones and different technology. Of course, I don't so basically I'm going to be reacting to a lot of videos and reacting to them because I don't have the money to basically uh just buy devices like JSL review, for example. And so right now we're just gonna be uh reacting to this video, iPod Touch 7th generation in 2026. Still worth it. Right off the bat, I would say not really, unless you just want a kid-friendly device or something.
A century of cutting, now in a mower.
So let's react to this video.
You know, I've always found it strange. People really want to save money, but are so willing to toss their hard-earned coin into...
Hey everyone, today we'll be taking a deep dive into the iPod Touch 7. Yes, this is the last iPod that Apple ever made. So,
Yes, right off the bat, what he's saying is true.
in this video, we'll be talking about whether or not it's worth buying, who it's for, and how it compares to modern devices. So first off, let's cover some quick background. So the iPod Touch was released in 2019 and it was discontinued in 2022 when Apple officially ended the entire iPod lineup.
Yes, that is true, actually. This is the best iPod Touch you can buy if you actually still want to buy it. So, if you guys don't know what an iPod Touch is, it's basically like an iPhone, except you cannot, except you cannot really call people. You can do FaceTime and maybe light texting
So this was
or light gaming as well.
basically the iPhone without all the cellular service, and it was
So yeah, that's true. I don't know exactly what phone that is, but it looks a bit like an iPhone 3S.
also very lightweight, slim, and it focused more on music and simple apps and gaming. So here in 2026, this device is now pretty old, so age is probably the biggest factor that we need to talk about.
Yeah,
So first
yes, that is kind of true. This is a very old device.
off, the design. This phone is very thin and light. It's just 88 grams. It has a 4-inch Retina display. It also has a home button with no Face ID.
The iPhone that he's holding up right now is an iPhone 6 or 6S, and you can kind of see the comparison between those two.
Or Touch ID, so that means every time you turn on the device, you have to manually type in the passcode, and it also has a headphone jack. It also feels very
Yeah, that's one of the last things that Apple made with a headphone jack, just so you know.
premium thanks to the aluminum body, but compared to modern edge-to-edge phones, the bezels look very dated. Now, if you like compact devices,
That is extremely true. Even iPhone SEs have smaller bezels. And even then, really, this is like, those bezels are huge. So I don't know, I forgot exactly how big this device is. I think it's between 4 and 6 inches. But since those bezels are so huge, you only have like 3 inches of actual display size left.
this might be one of the smallest smart devices that you can still find here in 2026, so that's just something to keep in mind. Now let's talk about the performance. So inside this device is the Apple A10 Fusion chip, the same chip found in the iPhone 7.
That is very true. This chip is pretty slow in 2026, but it's still manageable. You can find a way of how to get around it.
So back in the day it was pretty solid, but here in 2026 it's very old. For basic apps it's fine, for music streaming it's fine, but for complicated web browsing and multitasking or doing heavy gaming, the iPod Touch definitely cannot sustain any of that.
That is very true. It can only do very light gaming.
So it's basically good for just basic use. Now let's talk about how good the camera is on the iPod Touch. So this device has the 8 megapixel rear camera, and it also has a 1.2 megapixel front camera.
What he's saying is true, and that is extremely low nowadays. If you don't know this, but Apple, like its newest devices,
All of them have a 48 megapixel camera. Even the iPhone 17e has 48 megapixels.
which was very average in 2019, but here in 2026, it's very low quality. It's
Yes, like I said, it is very low quality, just like this guy says. I agree. Just like this guy said, I agree with him.
definitely not good to use. It's only useful for FaceTime, and even for social media, it just looks pretty awful. Now, as for the battery life, this device
Yes, I don't really recommend doing social media. Maybe you can just scroll Instagram, but it's not very good. The A10 chip isn't, it just, how do I put this? It just can't really run this app. The chips that are decent nowadays are A13 chip and up.
lasts about a day in terms of the battery if you just use it for music, but it drains very quickly within a couple of hours if you actively use it for web browsing or using different apps.
And just so you know, this is iPod Touch 7th generation. This is the only one that is worth getting if you even want to get one.
So let's now talk about who should buy this device here in 2026. So this is important. You should consider getting the iPod Touch 7 if you want a cheap, dedicated music player, or if you just want something that's very simple and will
Oh, I forgot to leave that out. He is right. Music is still okay on this device as the A10 chip can run it very well.
keep you away from your phone. It's definitely a great starter device for young people who are just getting into the Apple ecosystem but don't want to fully transition into the iPhone.
That is true. Like a little kid, maybe even 9 years old, if you parents, guys, want to give your child a device, maybe go along with this.
Now, do keep in mind that it's very out.
But the only thing is that in the upcoming years, like even 2028, I don't even think then this device will be worth it. The only time that maybe would be worth it if you still want to get it is this year, 2026, or 2027.
Outdated. There are a lot of other alternatives that I would recommend instead, like the iPhone SE, which is almost the same price and it performs way faster. Now, do not
That is true. iPhone SE is good.
buy this device if you want long-term software support or if you're looking for good performance or good camera quality. For just a little bit more money, you could buy
I'm just gonna as I'm just gonna backtrack 1 second. Right there. I don't know if you can see, but right there it says current iOS 15.8.2. That is very old iOS system. That is same iOS system that the iPhone 7 has that it left. This has very small security, so it's not that good. And also, just so you know, the iPod Touch might be okay, but if you really want something like the iPhone 7, it's not worth it because people can actually hack in and the security's kind of bad.
money, you could buy used iPhone SE that performs much better. And on top of that, the iPhone
That is true, but yeah.
SE still gets the latest updates, while the iPod Touch lost support back in 2022. So should you buy the iPod Touch 7 here in 2026? I would say no. It's no longer a practical main device. It's very niche. If you find one for very
Yes, I agree with this guy, but like I said, this is the part where I disagree. You can't buy it for your child if they're a very young age.
very cheap and you understand the limits, then I could sort of recommend getting it, but there are much better, cheaper alternatives. You could get the iPhone SE first generation, which performs basically
Nope, no. I'm just gonna cut this guy off right there. You cannot get the iPhone SE first generation. That is extremely old. It has a tiny little battery. I don't know the exact numbers. I'm pretty sure it's like 1,751 or something like that. But you should not get it. It's from 2016. It does not run the current iOS and it is very bad. That's where this guy's wrong.
the same as the iPod Touch, and it's about half the price. Or you could get the iPhone SE second generation, which is just a little bit more expensive.
Yes, iPhone SE second generation is on the lower side. It's not the best, but honestly, I don't even know why Apple gave it iOS 26 because it doesn't even have 5G. If you really do want to get an iPhone SE, that is still okay. Get the iPhone SE third generation. It's about $160. It's from 2022. It runs the current iOS. It has 5G and it has a 4.7-inch display. So it's a good phone for a little kid. But yeah, honestly, iPhone SE third gen is very worth it if you want an iPhone SE. iPhone SE second gen, I don't really think it's worth it at that point.
Than the iPod Touch. So either of those would be a lot better. I would much rather
So yeah, do not get the iPhone SE first gen. Sorry that I keep saying this, but even second gen, don't just don't. Because look, the second gen is about $110 from like Target or something. It might be $200 from Amazon if you do renewed premium, which means it's just basically just so good, but it's not. So if you really want an iPhone SE, get the third gen. It's only $50 more.
recommend getting one of the iPhone SEs instead of getting the iPod Touch. So that's everything you need to know for the iPod Touch 7 here in 2026. Would you still buy one, or is it officially outdated? Let me know in the comments what you think. And
Okay, guys, yeah. So yeah. Well, have a good one.